The crystal chandeliers of the grand hall cast golden reflections that danced across the polished marble walls, bathing the room in an almost ethereal glow. The most anticipated gala of the year had brought together New York's most influential figures, a constellation of glamorous dresses, perfectly tailored suits and meticulously practiced smiles. There was an air of exclusivity in the space, as if each guest were an indispensable fragment of a mosaic of power and prestige. At the center of this universe stood Liam Hawthorne. Tall, commanding, with an air of absolute control, he was the kind of man who made any room feel too small to contain his presence. His black tuxedo, custom-made by a renowned Italian tailor, seemed less like a garment and more like an extension of his natural authority. His posture was flawless, his gaze sharp and alert, and every step he took was accompanied by looks of admiration and respect, or envy, depending on the perspective. Beside him was Sabrina Ellis, his latest girlfriend. Sabrina was everything one might expect from a woman in Liam's orbit. Young, stunning, and wrapped in an emerald green dress that looked as though it had been crafted just for her. An up-and-coming actress, Sabrina was a star who knew exactly how to shine in the right circles. She laughed effortlessly as she whispered something in his ear, but Liam, usually attuned to every nuance around him, seemed distracted. As he moved through the hall, exchanging calculated smiles and handshakes with acquaintances, something caught his eye. Across the room, an unexpected figure completely stole his attention. It was Evelyn. His Evelyn. Evelyn Hawthorne, his ex-wife. She was far from the glamour and elegance he had known so well. Dressed in a simple waitress uniform, Evelyn balanced a silver tray full of champagne glasses with professional precision. Yet there was something about her that made him frown. The face he knew so intimately was there, still beautiful but noticeably paler, thinner. And then he saw it, her rounded belly, unmistakably revealing an advanced pregnancy. For a moment Liam's world seemed to freeze, the lively voices, the live music, the clinking of glasses. All faded as he tried to process what he was seeing. Evelyn was pregnant. The woman he had left behind after a very public and turbulent divorce was now working as a waitress at an event where he was the guest of honor and expecting a baby. "Liam, are you okay?" Sabrina's voice pulled him back to reality. He forced a smile. "Yes, of course, just thinking about the speech I have to give." But it wasn't true. He couldn't take his eyes off Evelyn. Something within him stirred uncomfortably. She seemed to be avoiding him, but for a brief moment, their eyes met. The shock on her face was unmistakable, though she quickly masked it with a neutral expression. Even so, Liam noticed the slight tremor in her hands as she adjusted the tray. A mix of emotions surged within him: surprise, curiosity, and above all, anger. Why was she here? And more importantly, whose baby was that? The questions hammered at his mind as he forced himself to turn his attention back to Sabrina, who was now chatting animatedly with one of the investors present. He tried to focus, but it was impossible. The image of Evelyn refused to leave his thoughts. From a distance, he watched her as she made her way toward the kitchen, her black uniform starkly contrasting with the grandeur of the hall. Her world seemed so far removed from his now. Evelyn had always been strong, determined, and even in the worst moments of their marriage, she had never shown weakness. But now, there was something different. A weariness in her eyes, a shadow of someone fighting to survive. Irritation began to simmer within him. It was unthinkable that Evelyn was here, in this role. He knew the divorce had been hard, but he had also believed she had enough resources to move on. And yet here she was, apparently in a position of dire need. And then there was the matter of the baby. The thought wouldn't leave him. Could it be his? No, that was impossible. They had been separated for over a year, and Evelyn had never mentioned anything. Still, the doubt gnawed at him like a sharp blade. Liam made a quick, cold decision. He needed to confront her. He needed answers. This wasn't just a matter of curiosity. It was something he couldn't ignore. Sabrina pulled him into a conversation with the event's host, but he remained restless. His eyes kept searching for Evelyn, even as he pretended to listen to the compliments and congratulations directed at him. When he finally managed to slip away, he headed discreetly toward the staff area, determined to find Evelyn and demand an explanation. He had no idea what he would say, but he knew he couldn't let her leave without addressing the questions now consuming him. As he turned into the narrow hallway leading to the kitchen, he stopped abruptly. Evelyn was there, leaning against the wall, the tray now empty at her side. She was taking deep breaths, as if trying to summon the strength to keep going. She didn't see him at first, but Liam knew he couldn't turn back now. He took a step forward, his shadow falling over her. Evelyn looked up, and the shock on her face was as evident as the tension in the air between them. "Liam," she said, her voice hesitant, as if saying his name required great effort. He crossed his arms, trying to rein in the anger and confusion roiling inside him. "Evelyn, what are you doing here, and what's going on?" She didn't respond immediately, but the look she gave him was enough to confirm what he feared. The secret Evelyn was keeping was far bigger than anything he was prepared to face. Liam stared at Evelyn, his eyes locked on the face he knew so well, but which now seemed burdened with secrets he couldn't ignore. The tension in the air was palpable, as if the unspoken words between them were tight ropes, ready to snap. "Answer me, Evelyn," he said, his voice sharper than he intended. "What is going on? How did you end up like this? And that baby, is it—" Evelyn looked away, her fingers clutching the fabric of her uniform as though it might offer her some kind of anchor. She seemed to be wrestling with herself, torn between the need to speak and the fear of what those words might unleash. "Liam, this isn't the place for this," she finally said, her voice low, almost pleading. "Don't tell me where the place is, Evelyn. I want answers, and I want them now." Her eyes met his, and for a moment Liam saw something he hadn't expected, not just exhaustion, but wounded pride. Evelyn had always been strong, a woman who faced every situation with her head held high. But now there was a fragility in her he had never seen before. "You think you know everything, don't you?" she replied, a hint of bitterness creeping into her voice. "But some things can't be explained in 5 minutes, Liam, and honestly I owe you nothing." Liam stepped closer, frustration mounting at her resistance. "Maybe you don't, but you're here, working as a waitress in a room that should be yours. Pregnant. How do you expect me to just ignore this?" Evelyn took a deep breath, trying to maintain her composure, but tears began pooling in her eyes. "I lost everything, Liam," she confessed, her voice barely above a whisper. "After the divorce, everything fell apart. I tried so hard, but no one would give me a chance. Your name, your influence, the weight of your shadow. There isn't a single place where I'm not Liam Hawthorne's ex-wife. It ruined my life." Her words hit him like a blow. Liam had always assumed that the divorce, though difficult, had left Evelyn with enough resources to move forward. He knew she had turned down a substantial financial settlement, insisting that she could rebuild on her own. He had admired her determination, but now he wondered if her pride had been a mistake. Before he could say anything, Evelyn continued, "And the baby?" "No, Liam. Don't ask. That's none of your business." But the hesitation in her voice was enough to plant a deep, gnawing doubt in him. As Evelyn tried to walk away, Liam found himself lost in memories of the past. He remembered how they had met years ago at a business conference. Evelyn had been brilliant, a financial strategist unafraid to challenge his ideas. She was unlike anyone he had ever encountered, intense, passionate, and above all, fiercely independent. Their marriage had started as a perfect partnership, but over time the pressure of work, Liam's need for control, and their differing visions for life had eroded their relationship. He knew he had been relentless in his demands, always prioritizing the company above everything else, including Evelyn. When she had asked for a divorce, he had resisted, but eventually relented, convinced that they would both move on. Now, seeing her here, he was beginning to question every decision he had made since then. But there was something else. A mystery Evelyn was hiding. He could feel it. And Liam Hawthorne was not the kind of man who left questions unanswered. After their brief exchange, Evelyn disappeared into the crowd, leaving Liam alone with his thoughts. Sabrina noticed his distraction and tried to pull him back into the event. "You're acting strange tonight," she said, frowning. "Did something happen?" Liam shook his head, forcing a smile. "Just business, nothing you need to worry about." It was a transparent lie. Sabrina was sharp enough to notice, but chose not to press him. Liam's cool, detached charm was one of the things that had drawn her to him, but tonight there was something different. He seemed vulnerable, a side of him she had never seen before. Liam, on the other hand, couldn't think of anything but Evelyn and the baby. He decided to act. Using his influence, he discreetly asked one of the event organizers for information about the catering staff that night. The response came quickly. Evelyn was working for a small event agency that offered temporary services. She wasn't a permanent employee, which likely meant she was desperate for work. He managed to get an address linked to the agency. It was an impulsive decision, something out of character for his normally calculated nature, but he couldn't let this go. The next morning, Liam arrived at the address he had been given. It was a modest apartment in a simple neighborhood, far removed from the luxury Evelyn had been accustomed to during their marriage. He didn't know what he was expecting to find, but what he saw only deepened his confusion. Evelyn was leaving the building, carrying a folder full of papers and looking exhausted. When she saw him, her face went pale. "You followed me?" she asked, her voice laced with indignation. "I want answers, Evelyn," he said firmly. "And if you won't give them to me, I'll find them myself." She sighed, exasperated. "Why can't you just leave me alone, Liam? Why now, after all this time?" "Because something doesn't add up," he said, stepping closer. "And because I can't ignore this. You're pregnant, you've lost everything, and you're clearly hiding something from me. I need to know the truth." And then came the revelation that changed everything. "That baby." "'Tis yours, Liam," she admitted, her voice breaking as she spoke the words. Liam was stunned into silence. The pieces began to fall into place, but his confusion only grew. If the baby was his, why had she kept it from him? Why had she chosen to struggle alone rather than ask for his help? Evelyn continued, her voice bitter. "I didn't want you to know. Not after everything. I knew you'd try to control it. Like you always tried to control everything in my life. I didn't want my child to become another extension of your obsession with power." Her words cut deep. For the first time, Liam found himself confronting not just the consequences of his actions, but the reflection of who he had been in Evelyn's eyes. But Evelyn hadn't revealed everything. There was something else, something she was fiercely guarding, and Liam could sense it. Whatever it was, it felt like the key to the larger truth he was now determined to uncover. The silence between Liam and Evelyn was heavy, almost suffocating. The revelation that he was the father of her child had turned everything upside down. Liam, who had always prided himself on his unshakable control, now found himself adrift in a sea of conflicting emotions. "Why didn't you tell me?" His voice came out quieter than he had expected, laced with disbelief. Evelyn clutched the folder against her chest, as if it could shield her from the confrontation. She stared at him, and for a moment Liam saw something in her eyes he couldn't quite decipher. It wasn't just anger or pain. It was something deeper, something darker. "I wanted to protect my child," she finally said, her voice steady but with an undertone of vulnerability that disarmed him. "Protect them from you, from your life, from your need to control everything and everyone around you. This baby isn't part of your world, Liam. I did what I thought was right." Her words hit like a direct blow, and Liam couldn't deny the truth behind them. During their marriage, he had indeed had a tendency to dominate every decision, always believing he knew what was best. But this was different. He couldn't accept being kept in the dark about something so monumental. "You think cutting me out is the answer?" he shot back, frustration spilling over. "I have a right to know, Evelyn. This isn't about control or whatever you think I might do. This is about a child. My child." The tension between them was nearly unbearable. Evelyn looked at him with a mix of sadness and determination. "Liam, do you really believe you could be a good father? You, with your endless meetings, your inability to step away from the company for even a day. How do you think you'd ever prioritize a child in the middle of all that?" He wanted to argue, but her words echoed cruelly in his mind. She wasn't wrong. Liam knew that his relentless focus on his business had been the undoing of their marriage. He didn't want to admit it, but the thought of raising a child amidst his chaotic life terrified him as much as it angered him. But before he could respond, Evelyn took a deep breath and revealed something even more alarming. "And there's more, Liam. This isn't just about the baby. Do you think I chose to end up where I am now? Working as a waitress, struggling to survive? I didn't have a choice." His brow furrowed in confusion. "What are you trying to say?" Evelyn hesitated, then finally spoke. "After the divorce, I lost everything, yes. But it was more than that. There was someone who made sure I couldn't get back on my feet. Job offers fell through without explanation. Contracts were cancelled. My reputation in the industry was destroyed. It wasn't coincidence, Liam. It was deliberate." Liam's mind began to race. "You're saying someone sabotaged you? Who would do that?" Evelyn closed her eyes for a moment, as if summoning the courage to continue. "Sebastian Royce." The name landed like a bombshell. Sebastian Royce was one of Liam's fiercest rivals in the business world, a man as ambitious as he was ruthless, infamous for his cutthroat tactics. They had clashed in numerous negotiations, and Liam had always suspected that Sebastian harbored a personal grudge against him. "Royce," Liam repeated, incredulous. "Why? What does he have to do with this?" Evelyn met his gaze directly. "Because he knew that destroying me would be the best way to hurt you. He wanted you to feel guilt, to know that your shadow ruined my life. He wanted me to be a constant reminder of what you left behind." Rage rose inside Liam like a wildfire. He knew Sebastian was capable of cruelty, but he had never imagined he would go to such lengths. Now, beyond the issue of the child, there was a new enemy to confront, someone who had been pulling strings behind the scenes for far longer than Liam had realized. In the days that followed, Liam began investigating Evelyn's claims. Using his extensive network of contacts, he discovered that several of the companies that had rejected Evelyn in recent months had ties to Sebastian Royce. There was a clear, deliberate pattern. Sebastian had orchestrated a campaign to leave Evelyn with no options, pulling every string possible to ensure her vulnerability. Meanwhile, Evelyn remained resistant to Liam's presence in her life. She insisted she didn't need his help, that she could handle everything on her own, but Liam refused to give up, not this time. In a moment of rare honesty, Evelyn admitted how much the secret had cost her. "I thought it would be easier to hide the baby from you, but it's consumed me, Liam. Every day I've thought about how different things might have been if it hadn't ended between us." Her words almost broke him. He had never imagined how deeply their separation had affected her, or how much she had sacrificed to protect what she believed was right. As Liam worked to dismantle Royce's scheme, a crucial detail emerged. One of his investigators uncovered that Royce hadn't simply sabotaged Evelyn's reputation. He had also purchased a company where Evelyn had been on the verge of a major promotion before the divorce, ensuring that she was fired without cause. The connection between Royce and Evelyn's downfall was undeniable. But there was more. Royce was on the brink of launching a massive project that coincided with one of Hawthorne Enterprises' most significant contracts. Destroying Evelyn had been part of a larger strategy to destabilize Liam both personally and professionally, undermining his confidence while Royce positioned himself to dominate the market. Liam knew he had to act, but his fight wasn't just about vengeance against Royce anymore. He wanted to prove to Evelyn that he was capable of change, that he could be more than the man she had left. Most of all, he wanted to ensure that their child's future wouldn't be overshadowed by the mistakes of the past. As Evelyn began to see the seriousness of Liam's efforts, the distance between them began to narrow. Despite all her pride, a small flicker of trust started to rekindle. But the greatest challenge still lay ahead. Royce was not a man who gave up easily, and Liam knew the battle was far from over. Liam was sitting in his luxurious boardroom, but for the first time the space offered him no comfort. In front of him, a chart of information detailed everything he had uncovered about Sebastian Royce: sabotaged contracts, manipulated companies, broken alliances. Every line in the report was a confirmation of what Evelyn had told him, and a declaration of war. Royce had crossed a line that Liam would never forgive. But Sebastian's game wasn't just professional. Liam knew that to completely disarm his rival, he needed to tackle the conflict on two fronts. First, neutralize the damage Royce had inflicted on Evelyn. Second, prevent him from executing his plans to take down Hawthorne Enterprises. This was the moment when Liam needed to prove he was more than just a CEO. He had to be a protector, a father, and perhaps once again something more to Evelyn. Liam moved swiftly, calling an emergency meeting with his board and top allies. He revealed Royce's plan and showed how the rival had undermined key deals while using Evelyn as a pawn in his attack. "He didn't just attack my company," Liam said firmly. "He attacked my family." The board members were silent. They had never seen Liam mention something so personal during a corporate meeting. It was a side of him few had ever known, a man willing to fight for something beyond profit. Meanwhile, Liam carefully orchestrated a strategy to expose Royce publicly. With the help of his contacts, he tracked down evidence of bribes and illegal contracts tied to his rival. Evelyn, hesitant at first, eventually agreed to collaborate, providing emails and documents she had kept hidden, unaware that they would one day be so crucial. "If this goes wrong, he'll come after me," Evelyn warned. For the first time since their divorce, Liam took her hands in his, looking directly into her eyes. "It won't go wrong. Not this time." And I won't let him touch you or our child." The sincerity in his eyes disarmed her. For the first time, Evelyn began to believe that Liam wasn't the same man he had been before. The night that would determine everything arrived. Royce had organized an extravagant press conference to unveil his newest project, a company promising to revolutionize clean energy technology. The media was out in full force, along with investors from around the globe. It was the perfect stage for Liam to strike. As Royce prepared to take the stage, Liam entered the event accompanied by Evelyn. Her presence, something Sebastian never expected, caused an immediate stir. He tried to maintain his composure, but the flicker of unease in his eyes betrayed him. "Liam," Royce said with a forced smile, extending a hand, "surprised to see you here, and with company." "I wouldn't miss the chance to witness the end of your little spectacle," Liam replied, his tone calm, almost amused. While Royce tried to mask his discomfort, Liam handed a folder to one of the attending journalists. Inside was a trove of evidence, detailed proof of Royce's illegal dealings, including bribes, fraud, and, most damning of all, how he had deliberately sabotaged Evelyn's career to hurt Liam. The journalist began reading the contents aloud, and the room fell silent. Royce attempted to defend himself, but the evidence was overwhelming. In a matter of minutes, his confidence melted into sheer panic. The press wasted no time capturing the fallout. Royce was forced to leave the event in disgrace, hounded by reporters shouting questions he couldn't answer. It was the end of his reputation, and, more importantly, the end of his influence in the corporate world. With Royce out of the picture, Liam turned his attention back to Evelyn. He knew that years of pride and mistakes couldn't be undone in a single night, but he was determined to try. "I know this doesn't erase the past," Liam said, looking at her with a sincerity she hadn't seen before. "But I want to do the right thing, Evelyn. Not just for you, but for our child. I was a fool not to see what really mattered before, but I won't make the same mistake again." Evelyn studied him in silence, weighing his words. She had spent so much time shielding herself from him and the world that she had stopped believing a different future was possible. But now standing before her was a man who wasn't just the cold, controlling CEO she had once known. Liam seemed different. "I don't know if I can trust you again," she admitted softly. "But for him, for our son, I'm willing to try." It was a small step, but for Liam it was enough. He knew he couldn't rebuild everything all at once, but he also knew that what truly mattered now wasn't his company or his rivals. It was what he would do from now on as a father, and perhaps in time, as someone important to Evelyn once again. A new beginning. Months later, Evelyn gave birth to a healthy baby boy, whom they named Henry. Liam was by her side in the hospital, holding her hand as their son let out his first cry. It was a moment that changed everything for him. As he held his son in his arms for the first time, Liam felt something he had never experienced before. It wasn't the pride of sealing a major deal or the thrill of defeating a rival. It was something deeper, something real, love. Evelyn, exhausted but smiling faintly, looked at him. "I still don't know what the future holds," she said quietly, "but at least now I know we're not alone." Liam nodded, tears welling in his eyes. He knew there was still a long road ahead, rebuilding trust with Evelyn, learning how to be a father, and becoming the kind of man his son could look up to. But for the first time in years, he felt like he was exactly where he was meant to be. In that hospital room, surrounded by the quiet hum of new life, Liam made a silent promise. He would fight for this family, with the same determination he had once reserved for his business. Because now, more than anything, they were his world, and he wasn't going to let anything or anyone come between them again.